Hey, everybody, it's Jason Mefford. Wanted to follow up on some of the discussions that I've been having with chief audit executives and talk about one of the points that has come up because it came up in several of the discussions that I had and have also been seeing some of this on LinkedIn as well. So, wanted to share with you the ugly truth about independence. Okay. And I'm going to be just open and honest with you in these discussions and want to talk a little bit about independence. The definition of internal auditing says that internal audit is an independent and objective assurance and consulting function designed to add value and improve an organization's operations. So there's those 2 points in there about independence and objectivity. So independence usually refers to, or a word that you can correlate with that is freedom. Free to be able to select the areas to audit, how you're going to audit it, how you're going to report on the results of your work. Objectivity is about doing your work in an unbiased manner. Okay, so that's really kind of the difference between the two. Now, here's the real ugly truth about independence. There is a difference between the aspiration level that's in the standards, that's in the mission or definition of internal auditing versus what people actually experience in the field. And so here's the ugly truth. Most internal audit departments are not independent the way the standards talk about it. Now, I know some of you might be going, holy crap, Jason, what are you talking about? So just sit back and breathe. And let me explain why. Okay. Independence, one of the ways that it's talked about is in the reporting relationship to the audit committee. And the fact that if your internal audit department functionally reports to the audit committee, then that means or should help you in having independence. But here's the reality. A lot of people misunderstand what functional reporting actually means. Included in that is that the audit committee would actually set the compensation for the chief audit executive, that they would have hiring and firing decisions, and that they would also be performing the annual review of the chief audit executive. Now, again, the reality is in most organizations, unless you are in a very mature organization or in a very regulated environment, those things are probably not happening, which means that ultimately the chief audit executive is at the beck and call somewhat of the executives who are setting his or her compensation and are responsible for determining the annual performance review of the chief audit executive. That's the reality, okay? And I've experienced that in my career when I was a chief audit executive, and I've heard this from many other people. So the reality for me personally was I issued a report one time that the CEO did not like. So guess what happened to my compensation and my annual review that year? You guessed it, okay? So I still did what I felt was the right thing to do, but I was personally impacted by it, okay? Now, some of you, again, might be saying, oh, what does this mean? This is horrible. I work for a place and I'm not really independent and I'm not really following the standards. Again, breathe. Okay, because here's the reality. It's better to be on the ship and actually helping to make changes than to be idealistic and a real pain in the ass to work with. Okay, and so what does that mean is if you are not fully independent, that's okay. All right, that's the reality of what most people are dealing with, which means sometimes you might have to give up a little bit on your independence. You know, if the board and senior management doesn't want you auditing certain areas, you probably shouldn't fight to go audit those areas. Now, I said that's if the board and senior management is saying that. Because again, if both of those groups that you're reporting to or have a responsibility to don't really want you looking at that area, why would you look at it anyway? Okay? Auditing areas that the board and senior management doesn't care about is not adding value to the organization. So you're better off to actually do the things that they would like you to do because then you're actually providing value back to the organization. And again, as I said, you know, for a lot of organizations, especially ones that are moving fast, you're going to have to help out more and actually, do more consulting type roles instead of assurance roles to help develop the governance, risk, and control and compliance processes within the organization. And that's okay. All right. So that's what I want to let you know. It's okay to do that, to give up a little bit of your independence to be able to add value to the organization. Now, it's not okay to give up your objectivity and to do audits that are biased and report untrue findings. That is not okay. But you will probably have to give up some of your independence, because, like I said, the reality is probably 80% of the chief audit executives are not fully independent the way the standards talk about it. So if you're trying to improve, because ultimately over the course of time, we would like to increase, right, our level of independence and increase the value and mature the role of internal audit. So let me give you a couple of tips for how you can actually do that. One of the biggest ways to do that is by making sure that you have executive sessions with the audit committee. Okay, so regardless of who you are reporting to within the organization, if you have the ability to sit down with the audit committee without any of the other managers in the room, and you can have that direct dialogue with them, that will give you a lot more independence, even if you're reporting somewhere else, because that allows them to ask you those questions they should already be asking, those tough questions, but it also allows you to be able to tell them things that they need to hear. If you feel like you're being blocked, if you feel like you're not getting the resources that you need. So that is one of the ways in which you can actually increase your independence. Now, you also want to, over time, again, if there's reporting issues or things like that need to be changed, realize that that's going to take time. And so again, from my experience, one of the places when I started off, I was reporting to the controller. Now, that's not the best option, as a place within the organization to be reporting, but I took the job, I worked it, I showed the value, and over time was able to explain to the other executives and to the board the importance of trying to elevate the function. And so before I left, instead of reporting to the controller, I was reporting to the CFO. Still not ideal, right? The way that the standards or the practice guides, implementation standards, suggest, but at least it was better. So if you're in a role in an organization where you don't feel like you have full independence, it's okay. Do the best that you can and realize that over time you can make changes. But if you stand up and are just a horse's butt and are hard to deal with, people are going to push you to the outside. They're not going to include you in the discussions, and it's better to be a part of the solution, even if it's not ideal with the standards, than to be pushed on the outside. So that's your tip for today on this little video about the real ugly truth of independence, but a couple of things that you can do as well to help over time improve your independence at your organization.